All right, traders, good afternoon. This is Christian Tromer at Start Trade Group, and this is a video for midday Friday, August 30th. It's a 3-day weekend coming up. I will be leaving right after the close today, so no end of month video, but I'm going to summarize it here for you guys, just in terms of the performance. And I'll speak one quick minute or 2 minutes about today's price action and this week's price action. But it kind of feels like we're already turning the corner in terms of that turning the corner in terms of that we're now like into the harder part of the year. And I think when you look at the upper left here of the price action, so for example, the Qs are still up 45 basis points for the day, but if you bought on the open, you're down. And that's kind of, I think, first of all, that's been the relationship over time, where buying the close and selling the open is a very profitable trade over time. Now, normally when you look at the average, and I had this chart up yesterday. All right, so this is going back. I can't read the years there on the bottom, but I think this is going back from like 1993. So I don't think the years matter that much, but you could see buying the close and selling the open. Now, again, this is not an exciting strategy, and I know people want to trade during the day, but um, this is what it is, and I don't think this goes to the present time. But you could just see that's where all the gains happen overnight. Now, if you buy the open and sell the close, right? Look at the money over time. So again, that's just makes it so much more difficult. So, and I've been teaching this now for years at this point, just where the alpha is made in the market. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't trade during the day at all, but on moves up, on gap ups, right? Always a net seller, in my opinion. That's how you deal with this predicament of buying the close and selling the open, or just holding, right? I Years ago I tweeted this out, and somebody said, "Well, really, it should be just basically, you know, if you just hold," right? And that's true too, right? But if you're doing more trading intraday, you want to be adding swing trades closer to the close, rather than in the beginning of the day. So that's what I'm trying to illustrate. I spent a few more minutes, but it should be eye-opening for many traders. And I get it, day traders are different too. Day traders, especially like if you're a day trader, you want the ability to basically buy at, to be able to go long and to short, considering this phenomenon that you have, versus intraday. There's back and forth movements intraday. So being able to both go long and short for day trades is important. But over time, like, I don't really see, like, again, just to kind of hammer the point home here, is that if all the gains are happening in the overnight market, then you really don't want to be selling. You really don't want to be shorting overnight either. You want your longs to be working for you. And then intraday, you can kind of do whatever you want, because the market's kind of all over the place. And sometimes, as of today, it's, selling on the open or even shorting on the open can work. And I think that that works also in the more difficult months, which is what we're approaching right now, September, which is one of the hardest months of could be, depending on what data that you look at, it's probably the worst month in terms of, on average, seasonality. All right, so I just wanted to make sure that you're aware of that and that phenomenon, because that can really kind of help you navigate this market a little bit. So what do we have at this point? Now I want to shift over here, right, and I want to talk about the month basically. But for the month, the S&P is up 1.5% for the month. I mean, that's pretty darn good, considering all the chop that we've had this week and the back and forth movement. The Qs are essentially flat for the month, and the small caps are down 2.5% for the month. Even though it's just crazy when you look at some of these numbers, because the small caps have been outperforming over the last week and a half. Mid caps are down 1% too. ARC and the innovation ETF, ARC, the innovation ETF, and the IBD 50 ETF have done poorly. So just shows you like actively managed. Now, of course, ARK is the worst of the worst over time. So I don't really want to put them together with the IBD 50. But year to date, again, it just shows you how difficult, even IBD 50, which, they have their own methodology of going, going into stocks. That ETF is only up 5.4% year to date versus SPY up 18%. Now, maybe you can make an argument here that these ETFs probably both do better once there's a lot of stimulus going on. And if there's not a lot of stimulus going on in terms of what forget about fiscal policy for a minute, because they've been stimulating for a while. But in terms of monetary policy, probably these two ETFs do better than they're currently doing. I can't really say much more than that because I don't follow their day-to-day trading decisions, but so on and so forth. Value versus growth. Value did better this month, and value did better. Oh, wow, look at this. It did not do better in the small caps. Actually, growth did better, but both of those are down. But interesting, the difference between the small cap, flip it around when you look at that. TLT finished up 2.3%. I'll begin to kind of look at some of these charts. Just to let's just bring this up over here. All right, so here's what we've got for the Qs, which again, open here, try to go higher, suck everybody in, go lower. Let's look at the S&P first. When we look at S&P futures, right? So all over type of price action this month. Oops, that's the weekly chart. Obviously we started to move down in the middle of July. We kind of came back a little bit at the end of the end of the month, beginning of the month. We went straight down, but recovered there and pushed higher. But basically since I think this is last Friday. Yeah, this is the closest we got in terms of a close to basically break higher, and it's been tricky this week, back and forth all over the place, just particularly yesterday with the rejection there at the top of the value area. So I talked about this in the pre-market video too, but notice that the top of the value for next month is going to be very similar to this month. So we're going to have basically the same resistance to deal with. Qs, it's going to be different. Whoops, added one too many Qs there. Qs, hanging on by a thread here in terms of the bottom of the value area. A lot of people thinking, I saw some post earlier that, okay, move down and then move back up. I don't know. It's going to be tough. Like, I don't know if you're going to get that strong move out of the bigger companies, right? You're obviously NVIDIA, your Apple, your Microsoft. Are these going to be the names that are going to propel the market, in the next month? Certainly kind of remains to be seen. They've just acted not very well. And, think about this too, because I try to mention this a lot in the room, of those big names, right? So let's bring up the Qs for a minute. Bring this up over here, because I firmly believe that a strong earnings report will get buyers into the, and not only just a strong earnings report, but strong reaction to earnings will get buyers to kind of come into these names. So here's the top names. And again, you have to remember that Google is about 5%. You get the Class A and the Class C. You add those together, and that puts it right around like the fourth biggest company. But you've got Apple, Microsoft, NVIDIA. Now, of course, NVIDIA is fresh, but did not have a good earnings reaction, right? And I think the main thing to kind of realize with NVIDIA, I'll chime in with my 2 cents, is that you just have you don't have while they're earning a ton of money, they're not growing as fast as they were over the last 3 quarters. I'll say that again, right? They're making a ton of money, sales, revenue, and I think their earnings as well. But the issue is they're not growing as fast. Like when you look at the rate of growth, they're beginning to slow down, and that's just how it works. You get larger and larger, it's harder to grow that fast. So that's the issue I think with NVIDIA. Microsoft, their quarter was okay, and I don't see them, being a market leader for the time being, right? Unless they have another really strong quarter. But I just think that the growth here is kind of mature for some of these companies. Meta, I think, had the best earnings out of the group, right? So we can look at these names really quickly, but we'll start with this guy, Nvidia. Right. And again, it doesn't mean like this is completely over for Nvidia. It just means that I think that for the time being, it probably needs to digest and go from there. I mentioned Microsoft. Here's where they had earnings, and they really haven't acted well since that earnings report. Apple, I think Apple has this event that's coming up, which again, I try to go long earlier in the week, but I just have a feeling that Warren Buffett is selling more of his position. And I think that's the case. I think that you're going to have sellers in some of these names that when the name goes up, they're going to be taking advantage, and they're going to be selling a bit more, selling harder into strength. Meta, mentioned, has had the nice, real strong earnings, but could not break higher here, and was rejected here. And I lost some money on that, looking for a move higher here, and I've stayed away from it since it got rejected. I haven't really gone back to it. Could it be a double top, or I think it was mentioned in the room, maybe a triple top. I don't know. I just think that you're going to have some support in here, maybe at the 50-day moving average, but maybe it just goes sideways for a bit. Right? Netflix had good earnings, and they've actually been the star. I think, even though they're kind of having some difficulty taking that next leg higher. So again, you go through all these names, and they just look tired. There's Tesla. Tough, had a big move, and really no follow through after that. That was nice if you made money on this, but since then it did find some support, but wasn't able to really kind of do much after that. And who else am I missing out of this group? But in any event, you kind of see what I'm getting at. So going back to over here, and thinking about like we were looking at the Qs chart, could this begin to kind of move back higher and test? It's going to be tough. Like, I would err on the side that these things are just, I think if this comes up, I think it's going to have a tough time breaking through the highs of this month. So that's my thought on this, just kind of summarizing for you. I think that the large, and again, I've said that this is not new. I've been talking about this for a while, that I just don't think the strength is going to be in mega cap tech for now. IWM, well, had some strength. We did not take out the highs here, but again, a real nice move off those lows. I mean, this is pretty nasty. Where we started this month was basically just straight down and gapping down like this. Really unusual to kind of see something like this, and then the movement back up here. So really nice movement back up, but didn't take out the highs, and a lower high here, and we just kind of, we have to see where we go. So again, this is just setting up in terms of what we're seeing here. And similarly, notice how similar that chart at TLT is to IWM, right? Nice move up. Again, it's not as dramatic. Nice move up that we saw move down in the beginning of the month, and did not make a new high here. And look at the candle for today, as rates are going higher. Qs just took out the lows of the day, by the way. So yeah, that's a nasty move down. So again, month end living up to what it does a lot of times, which is just not particularly good. Would have moved down again. VIX is at the highs of the day. So yeah. So just to kind of summarize here a little bit, but bonds going back down this way now, breaking the 20-day moving average in TLT is not the best look. And the dollar has been moving up over the last week, this week basically, even though it's down for the month. All right, so that's your that's your summary. It is what it is. I wish I could be more positive, but going into September, like if we were seeing some really good setups, right? Because I think ultimately, like if you start to see really good setups, that can outweigh the seasonality. But I don't like what I'm seeing in terms of the overall price action. Now, again, this is kind of tough because the breadth is still pretty good. Like these are the new S&P 4-week new highs today versus new lows, and that's dominating. But I don't know if this can continue to occur. And again, I've been a champion of this, talking about, hey, financials are very strong, but uh, you know, do you have to ask yourself, is this just going to keep going up in a straight line like this? And again, I'm a trend trader. I'm a trend trader, so I like to stick with trends, but I think you've got to be reasonable here. And you could see the consumer staples are actually coming in a little bit. I sold Berkshire Hathaway in my trading account today. Why did I do that? Right, because I just think that this is extended enough. Look at the RSI. So I'm just happy to make gains with this and kind of move on a little bit. All right, so and that's one of the biggest financials out there. Um, Healthcare, right? Also starting to kind of come in a little bit, right? So again, this is a really nice move. And I think that that's the takeaway here is as I've said this week, I said, hey, this is where the strength has been in these low volatility areas of the market. But would I chase any of these low volatility areas right now? No, I wouldn't. And I would be taking profits at this stage in the game. Right. So that this can only go these things can only go on for so long. So take some in my opinion, it's a place to take profits. And some of these things that have worked really well. Again, this is the low volatility ETF. And of course, two areas that I've been talking a lot about are the insurance names. Again, they're really they've had a really nice run. ITA is another one, right? Aerospace and defense. Okay, so there's not trying to complain at all about that. And here's what's performed well for this last month. Consumer staples up 5%. REITs, medical devices are up 6.5%. A lot of healthcare. So again, all the low volatility areas of the market, defense and aerospace. I don't have KIE in here, but perhaps I should. Let's see let's see if I can copy this formula over. Whoops. Be interesting to see what this is up. Yeah, it's up 3.2% for the insurers. All right, tech. The reason why I have tech highlighted is because tech is the big kahuna. When you look at this, and all right, tech is 31% of the S&P. Right, just in case you can't see that. All right, there you go. 31% of the S&P. So it's important. The next biggest sector is the financials, only at 13%. So this is going to whip around the market. Hence, I spent some time on the Qs because a lot of the top components of XLK are the top components of the Qs. Even though that's kind of split now between communications. Communications did okay this month, up 1.1%. All right. What did poorly? Energy, metals, and mining. A lot of the commodity type areas of the market. Clean energy, which I guess you can kind of do two things with clean energy. You can think about it in terms of, geez, and that's down 35% year to date. Here's year to date, and here's quarter to date. But it's number one. It requires like there is a relationship, I believe, with rates there and so yeah, with interest rates, so you have to keep that in mind. And we just talked about TLT is starting to kind of trend lower a little bit. That's been one of the worst groups, as well as oil services. So a lot of commodities not doing well here. Energy's in there. Semis were down 2.4% for the month. Consumer discretionary. Banks were actually down 1.1%. So there you have. So there's your summary, guys, for the month. I wish I could be a little bit more positive, but the one thing that I would say is that if you can get through the month of If you can get through the month of September and you can kind of try to day trade a little bit, try not to, do too much and understand the market dynamics, we could be set up for an end of year rally once things kind of maybe go through a little bit of digestion, maybe a little bit of a move down. And who knows, there could be some prizes out there. The one final thing that I'll say about this too is, um, you know, I've been continuing to add to that earnings watch list, right? And I think I have to add some names from this week. I've kind of not done a good job adding some of the newer names this week, but just kind of have to keep in mind that there's been a lot of still strong earnings moves, right? And those names I believe should outperform, and I think set up some good opportunities once we get through what we're dealing with. All right, guys, that's it for the kind of midday end of month type video. Have a great rest of your day and have a great long weekend.